What is up, everybody? J.T. Dangerous here once again. I am back for my 2018 NCAA Men's Tournament Bracket Predictions. Now, as a college basketball fan, this is the funnest time of the month because it's the start of the March Madness and the NCAA Tournament. Now, we did this tournament last year on the channel. We didn't have a lot of success on it, but I had so much fun doing it, and I thought this year I had to bring it back. And win or lose, if my bracket busts early like it did last year, I'm still gonna have fun doing these predictions. Now, if you do not know, I'm a huge Duke Blue Devils fan and an Oklahoma Sooners fan, so I'm very excited to do this year's NCAA tournament. It's going to be a long video for sure because I'm going to be making my picks for each region, and you'll find out who I'm picking to make it to the Final Four and who I'm picking to win this year's national championship. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn. I hope you guys do enjoy these predictions. Now, before I start, I do want to thank you guys so very much for watching all the videos in the month of March on the channel. Thank you guys for showing your love on my WWE predictions, my New Japan predictions, my Ring of Honor predictions. Thank you guys for still watching my New Japan Cup, even though my tournament busted on night 1. Thank you guys for showing your love on that video. We got a few more videos that are going to be up on the channel later in the month. So again, hopefully you guys will show your love on those. And show your love on this video by watching the video, super kicking that like button, and voicing your opinions and your picks for this year's tournament in the comment section down below. Now, we are at 290 plus subscribers now on the channel, so I do want to thank you guys so very much for supporting the channel. To new subscribers, thank you guys so very much for super kicking that subscribe button, and welcome to the Dangerous Alliance. It is great to have you guys here. And to my longtime subscribers, thank you guys for sticking around, supporting the channel, and as always, killing it. Now, this is your first time watching my channel, as a first time viewer, and this is your first video. Boy, you picked a good one to see who I'm picking to win this year's NCAA tournament. Welcome to the Dangerous Alliance. I am J.T. Dangerously, and welcome to the club, because this club is just two. Whoop, whoop. Again, thank you guys so very much. Now, other than that, let's get right into this year's NCAA tournament. Now, let's start off in the South region with the #1 overall seed coming out of the ACC. They are the ACC champions, the Virginia Cavaliers, facing off against the number 16 seed, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Now, starting off with Virginia, they're having one hell of a year this year in college basketball. A lot of people didn't even expect them to be even in this race, but they've knocked off teams like North Carolina. They knocked off teams like my Duke Blue Devils. They've knocked off some of the best teams, and they deserve to be the #1 overall seed. And from the days of Ralph Sampson in Virginia, this team is looking to go as far as they can with this young team. And then on the other side, you have the University of Maryland and Baltimore County, which I don't know a lot about, so sorry if you're fans of them. So coming from me in this 116 matchup in the South region, I'm going to go with the #1 overall seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, to defeat University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and move on to the round of 32. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 battle, which are always hard to predict, featuring the number 8 seed, the Creighton Jays, facing off against the number 9 seed, the Kansas State Wildcats. Now, starting off with Creighton, the only thing I know about Creighton is Doug McDermott played there. That's the only thing I know about Creighton, the Creighton Jays. On the other side with Kansas State, I don't know a lot about their players. I know Michael Beasley went to Kansas State, I think. I'm taking a guess there. So coming from me in this 8-9 battle to see who will be facing Virginia in the round of 32, I'm going to go with the Creighton Jays to defeat the Kansas State Wildcats. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 battle, and it's the Battle of the Wildcats, featuring the SEC champions, the Kentucky Wildcats, facing off against the Davidson Wildcats. Now, starting off with the Kentucky Wildcats, are coming off a big win on Sunday over Tennessee to claim another SEC championship. And you already know, when you got John Calipari, Coach Cal, he knows what he's doing with a lot of youngsters. He's the master of the one and done. He gets their players to the top and gets them all the way, gets them straight to the NBA draft. But Calipari's doing a good job in Kentucky. He's always done a good job since he's been there. But Kentucky's looking to go far this year in the tournament. Then you have the Davidson Wildcats, who defeated, I think they defeated Rhode Island to get their championship game. But this Davidson team is really good. The only thing I know about Davidson is that Steph Curry played at Davidson, and he was a star, and he was a huge star in the tournament for them. So coming from me in this Battle of the Wildcats, the 5-12 battle, I'm going to go with Coach Calipari's Kentucky Wildcats to defeat the Davidson Wildcats. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle featuring the Pac-12 champions, the Arizona Wildcats, facing off against Buffalo, the 13th seed. Now, starting off with Arizona, Arizona is having one hell of a year. They're the Pac-12 champions, but they're also coming in with a lot of controversy with their coach allegedly paying players to play at Arizona, in which the investigation is still going on. But Arizona is looking to go deep in this tournament amid the controversy with their coach. So coming from me in this 4-13 battle, I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats to defeat Buffalo. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 battle featuring the number 6 seed coming out of the ACC. They are the Miami Hurricanes, or the U, facing off against the number 11 seed, the Loyola Chicago. Now, starting off with the Canes, their basketball team is looking good. I mean, their football team was amazing in college football last season, and Miami's looking to go deep in this tournament. Then on the other side, you have Loyola Chicago, which I don't know a lot about. When I see Loyola, I always think Loyola Marymount, but Loyola Chicago, I don't know a lot about. So coming from me in this 6-11 battle, I'm going to take the Miami Hurricanes, the number 6 seed, to defeat Loyola Chicago. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 battle featuring on the number 3 seed, the Tennessee Volunteers, facing off against the number 14 seed, Wright State. Now, Tennessee is coming off that tough loss to Kentucky in the SEC Championship on Sunday. Who would have thought? Well, I'm not surprised. Tennessee's basketball team has always been good, unlike their football team last season. But that's another story. But Tennessee's basketball team is looking pretty solid. Then on the other side, you have Wright State. Again, I don't know a lot about them, but they could pull. There's a lot of teams that can pull upsets in this tournament this year. So coming from me in this 3-14 battle, I'm going to take the Tennessee Volunteers to defeat Wright State. And now the next matchup, the 7-10 battle featuring the Nevada Wolfpack facing off against the Texas Longhorns. Now, I don't know a lot about Nevada this year when it comes to basketball, and I don't know a lot about Texas when it comes to basketball. So this one's a very 50-50 pick. So coming from me in this 7-10 battle, I am taking the Nevada Wolfpack to defeat the Texas Longhorns. And now the final matchup in the South region, the 2-15 battle featuring the number 2 seed, the Cincinnati Bearcats, facing off against the number 15 seed, Georgia State. Now, Cincinnati is coming off an amazing year. Nobody expected Cincinnati to be this good this season. And they won their conference championship, and they deserve to be this number 2 seed. But it's hard to trust them for sure, because we don't know. We never thought Cincinnati would be this good this season. So they're definitely a watch-out team. So coming from me in this final first-round matchup in the South region, this 2-15 matchup, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats to defeat Georgia State. Now the next matchups in the South, the round of 32 battles featuring the number 1 overall seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, facing off against the Creighton Jays. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I'm going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers to defeat the Creighton Jays. And now the other matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16 is another battle of the Wildcats featuring the number 5 seed Kentucky Wildcats versus the number 4 seed Arizona Wildcats. So coming from me in this second battle of the Wildcats in the tournament in the South region to see who will make it to the Sweet 16. Man, this one's tough. Go with experience with Calipari or controversy when it comes to Arizona. I'm going to go with the Arizona Wildcats to defeat the Kentucky Wildcats and move on to the Sweet 16. And now the other half of the South's bracket in the round of 32, featuring the number 6 seed, the Miami Hurricanes, facing off against the number 3 seed Tennessee Volunteers. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16 here. Man, this one's another tough one. I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers to defeat the Miami Hurricanes and move on to the Sweet 16. And now the other round of 32 matchup to see which team will make it to the Sweet 16 and face off against Tennessee. It is the number 7 seed Nevada Wolfpack against the number 2 seed Cincinnati Bearcats. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I am taking the number two ranked Cincinnati Bearcats to defeat the Nevada Wolfpack. And now my Sweet 16 matchups in the South region, featuring the number 1 overall seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, facing off against the number 4 seed, Arizona Wildcats. So, coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in the South region, I'm going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers once again to defeat the Arizona Wildcats and move on to the Elite 8. And now the other Elite 8 matchup to see the other Sweet 16 matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8, featuring the number 3 seed Tennessee Volunteers facing off against the number 2 seed Cincinnati Bearcats. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 against the number 1 overall seed Virginia. Man, this one's a really tough one. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats to defeat the Tennessee Volunteers and make it to the Elite 8. And now my Elite 8 predictions to see which one of these teams will be my first team that will make it to the Final Four, featuring the number 1 overall seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, versus the Cincinnati Bearcats. So, coming from me in this matchup to see which team out of the South region will make my Final Four. Man, this one's tough. I'm gonna go with the number 1 overall seed, the Virginia Cavaliers, to defeat the Cincinnati Bearcats and become my first team to make it to the Final Four. And now we go on to the West region, the bottom half of the bracket, starting off with the 1/16 matchup featuring the number 1 seed, the Xavier Musketeers, facing off against the winner of the NC Central Texas Southern matchup in the first 4 matchups on Tuesday or Wednesday. So, coming from me in this 1/16 battle, doesn't matter whoever wins they're not going to knock off Xavier. So, coming from me, I'm taking the number 1 Xavier Musketeers to defeat either NC Central or Texas Southern. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 battle, featuring the Missouri Tigers facing off against the Florida State Seminoles. Now, Missouri's had this kid that had a back injury, and he came back in the SEC tournament this past week. They didn't go as far, but that kid's being back is definitely a good sign for Missouri. So coming from me in this 8-9 battle in the West region, I'm going to go with the Missouri Tigers to defeat the Florida State Seminoles. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 battle, featuring the number 5 seed coming out of the Big Ten. They are the Ohio State Buckeyes, facing off against the 12 seed South Dakota State. Now, so coming from me in this 5-12 battle, I'm going to go with the Ohio State Buckeyes to defeat South Dakota State and move on to the round of 32. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle, featuring the Gonzaga Bulldogs facing off against University of North Carolina Greensboro. So coming from me in this matchup, they got a kid at Gonzaga that's a talent. I can't remember the kid's name because they were talking about it on Inside College Basketball on CBS this morning. But this kid, it looks to be a big-time star for Gonzaga, and he could be a big-time pick for anybody in the NBA. But I'm going to go with the Gonzaga Bulldogs to defeat UNC Greensboro. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 battle, featuring the Houston Cougars facing off against South Dakota State. Now, Houston's coming off a tough loss to Cincinnati in their championship game on Sunday, so they're looking to go a little bit farther in the tournament. So coming from me in this 6-11 matchup, I am taking the Houston Cougars to defeat South Dakota State. And now the next matchup, the 7-10 battle, featuring the number 7 seed Texas A&M Aggies facing off against the Providence Friars. Now, starting off with Providence, they had a pretty solid run in their tournament, their conference tournament. They got as far as, I think, the quarterfinals or the semifinals, but they fell short. So coming from me in the 7-10 battle, here's my first upset of the tournament. I'm going to go with the number 10 seed Providence Friars to defeat the Texas A&M Aggies. And now the next matchup, I think I forgot this one. This is the 3-14 matchup featuring the Michigan Wolverines facing Montana. So coming from me in this matchup, this one was I got mixed up here. I'm going to take the Michigan Wolverines to defeat Montana. And now the final matchup in the West region is the 2-15 battle, featuring the number 2 seed coming out of the ACC, our hated rivals, the reigning champs, the North Carolina Tar Heels, facing off against the 15th seed Lipscomb. So I've never even heard of this school, and you have the reigning champs in the tournament once again. So coming from me in this final matchup in the West region in the first round, I am taking the North Carolina Tar Heels to defeat Lipscomb and move on to the round of 32. And now my round of 32 predictions to see who will make it to the Sweet 16. Starting off with the number 1 seed, the Xavier Musketeers, facing off against the number 8 seed, Missouri Tigers. So coming from me in this round of 32 matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16 in the West region, I am taking the Xavier Musketeers to defeat the Missouri Tigers. And now the other round of 32 matchup, and this one could be a really good one. It's the 5 seed, the Ohio State Buckeyes, facing off against the 4 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs. So coming from me in this round of 32 matchup, this one's a tough one because Ohio State's pretty good, but this Gonzaga team is really good. So coming from me in this matchup, I'm taking the Gonzaga Bulldogs to move on to the Sweet 16 and defeat Ohio State. And now the other matchup, the 6 versus 3 matchup, featuring the Houston Cougars facing off against the Michigan Wolverines. So coming from me in this matchup, to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I'm going to take the Michigan Wolverines to defeat the Houston Cougars. And now the final second round matchup in the West region, featuring the number 10 seed Providence Friars facing off against the number 2 seed North Carolina Tar Heels. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I'm going to go with the reigning champs, the North Carolina Tar Heels, to defeat Providence. And now my Sweet 16 matchup to see which 2 teams will make it to my Elite 8 in the West region. Starting off with the number 1 seed, the Xavier Musketeers, versus the number 4 seed, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Now, this one's going to be a really good one. This can go either way. This is definitely a 50-50 pick. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in the West region, coming from me, oh man, this one's really tough. I'm going to go with the Xavier Musketeers to defeat the Gonzaga Bulldogs and move on to the Elite 8. And now the other Sweet 16 matchup to see who will be facing Xavier in my Elite 8. It is the number 3 seed, the Michigan Wolverines, facing off against the number 2 seed and reigning champs, North Carolina Tar Heels. Now, when I see this matchup, the only thing I remember between these two was 93. If you remember Michigan, the Fab Five against a Fab Five's trip to the national championship and the infamous timeout they did not have from Chris Webber. That's the only moment I remember out of this rivalry between Michigan and North Carolina. Was that timeout that Chris Webber called that he didn't have. It cost them the national championship. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in the West, I'm going to go with the reigning champs, the North Carolina Tar Heels, to defeat Michigan and make it to the Elite 8. And now my Elite 8 predictions to see who will make it to my Final Four in the West region, featuring the Xavier Musketeers and the North Carolina Tar Heels. So coming from me in this West region, coming from me in this matchup to see who will win the West region for me and make it to the Final Four to accompany Virginia, I'm going to go with the reigning national champions, the North Carolina Tar Heels, unfortunately being a Duke fan, to defeat Xavier and make it to the Final Four. And now the East region of the tournament, starting off with the 1/16 matchup featuring the Villanova Wildcats facing off the winner of LIU Bradford and Redford. So coming from me in this 1/16 matchup, no, it doesn't matter who wins that first four. The 16 matchup between those two, I'm going to go with the Villanova Wildcats to defeat either LIU Bradford or Radford in the first round. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 battle featuring the Virginia Tech Hokies facing off against the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, the only thing I can say about the Alabama Crimson Tide's college basketball team is that they have a great kid there named Colin Sexton. The kid's pretty talented, for sure. And I'm very happy to see him in this tournament because he's going to be one of those guys that's going to shine. So coming from me in this 8-9 battle, I'm taking the Alabama Crimson Tide to defeat the Virginia Tech Hokies. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 battle featuring the number 5 seed West Virginia Mountaineers facing off against the number 12 seed Murray State. Now, we saw Murray State last year. They had some big-time upsets. I don't know a lot about West Virginia. basketball teams. So coming from me in this 5-12 battle, oh man, oh man, oh man, I am taking... do I see an upset here? I'm gonna go with the West Virginia Mountaineers to defeat the number 12 seed Murray State. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle featuring the number 4 seed Wichita State Shockers facing off against the Marshall Thundering Herd. Now, Wichita State's having another fantastic year, not even without a few of their best players. I think I'm taking a wild guess because Wichita State was such an amazing team in the tournament a couple years ago, only losing 3 games. So with this Wichita State team is very, very dangerous for sure. So coming from me in this 4-13 battle, I'm taking the Wichita State Shockers to defeat the Marshall Thundering Herd. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 battle featuring, coming out of the SEC, they are the Florida Gators facing off against the winner of the first 4 matchups featuring St. Bonaventure and UCLA. So, man, that's going to be a very interesting one. So coming from me in this 6-11 matchup, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators to defeat either St. Bonaventure or UCLA. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 battle featuring the Texas Tech Red Raiders facing off against the number 14 seed Stephen F. Austin. So this one's a very interesting match. I think it's like a battle of Texas right here. So coming from me in this 3-14 battle, I am taking the Texas Tech Red Raiders to defeat Stephen F. Austin. And now the 7-10 matchup featuring the Arkansas Razorbacks facing off against the number 10 seed, the Butler Bulldogs. Now, this one's a really good one. I mean, Arkansas had a pretty good run in the SEC tournament this year, and they're looking to go far. Butler, a team that got all the way to the national championship a couple years ago against my Blue Devils, are looking to go pretty much, looking to continue their winning ways. So coming from me in this 7-10 matchup in the East Division, I am taking the Arkansas Razorbacks to defeat the Butler Bulldogs. And now the final first round matchup in the East Division is the 2-15 battle featuring the number 2 seed coming out of the Big Ten, the Purdue Boilermakers, facing off against the number 15 seed Cal State Fullerton. Now, Purdue is another one of those teams that surprised a lot of people this year in college basketball. Just like Virginia, just like Rhode Island, just like Cincinnati. Purdue was another team. A lot of people didn't expect Purdue to be this good, and they were pretty amazing at home. They lost a few games at home, but their record at home was pretty top-notch. So coming from me in this final matchup in the East Division this East Division, I am taking the Purdue Boilermakers to defeat Cal State Fullerton. And now my round of 32 predictions in the East, featuring, of course, the Villanova Wildcats facing off against the Alabama Crimson Tide. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16 in the East, I am taking the Villanova Wildcats to defeat the Alabama Crimson Tide. And now the other round of 32 matchup featuring the number 5 seed West Virginia Mountaineers facing off against the number 4 seed, the Wichita State Shockers. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16. Oh man, oh man, oh man, this one's a tough one. I'm going to go with the Wichita State Shockers to defeat the West Virginia Mountaineers and make it to the Sweet 16. Now the next round of 32 matchup featuring the number 6 seed, the Florida Gators, facing off against the number 3 seed, Texas Tech Red Raiders. So coming from me in this matchup, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators to defeat the Texas Tech Red Raiders. And now the final round of 32 matchup in the East featuring the number 7 seed Arkansas Razorbacks against the number 2 seed the Purdue Boilermakers. So coming from in this final round of 32 matchup in the East region, I am taking the Purdue Boilermakers to defeat the Arkansas Razorbacks and make it to the Sweet 16. And now my Sweet 16 matchups in the East featuring the number 1 seed, the Villanova Wildcats, facing off against the number 4 seed, the Wichita State Shockers. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in the East region, coming from me, I'm going to go with the Villanova Wildcats to defeat the Wichita State Shockers and make it to the Elite 8. And now the other Sweet 16 matchup to see who will make it to the Elite 8 in the East, featuring the number 6 seed, the Florida Gators, facing off against the number 2 seed, Purdue Boilermakers. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 matchup, Man, this one's really tough. I'm going to go with the number 2 seed Purdue Boilermakers to defeat the Florida Gators and move on to the Elite Eight. And now my Elite Eight predictions to see who will be coming out of the East in my Final Four, featuring the Villanova Wildcats facing off against the Purdue Boilermakers. Now this one's a really tough one because Villanova won the national championship a couple years ago off that amazing shot over North Carolina, and this team is looking to once again be the national champs. And then you have Purdue, who has had one hell of a year for sure in college basketball this season, and it would be something to see if the Boilermakers make it to the Final Four. So coming from me in this matchup, I am taking... I am taking the Villanova Wildcats to win the East region and move on and defeat the Purdue Boilermakers and make it to the Final Four. And now the final bracket of this year's tournament in the Midwest, starting off with the 1/16 matchup. They're coming out of the Big 12. They are the Big 12 champions. They are the Kansas Wildcats facing off against the number 16 team, the Pennsylvania. Now, Kansas is coming off a very interesting year. Bill Self once again did it again in the Big 12 tournament, winning another Big 12 title. He's doing something that their football team hasn't done, and that's win. And Bill Self is a bona fide winner. So coming from me in this 1/16 matchup in the Midwest region, I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks, to defeat Pennsylvania. And now the next matchup, the 8-9 battle featuring the Seton Hall Pirates facing off against the NC State Wolfpack. Now, I don't know a lot about Seton Hall as much. I don't know a lot about NC State other than Jim Valvano coached them to win the national championship in the 80s over Houston. So, coming from me in this 8-9 battle in the Midwest, oh man, I hate these 8-9 matchups. They're always the worst to predict. I'm going to go with the North Carolina State Wolfpack to defeat the Seton Hall Pirates. And now the next matchup, the 5-12 battle, featuring the Clemson Tigers heading and facing off against the New Mexico State Aggies. I think the Aggies, right, yeah. But so I don't know a lot about their basketball teams. I know their football teams very well. So coming from me in this 5-12 battle, I'm going to take the Clemson Tigers to defeat the New Mexico State Aggies. And now the next matchup, the 4-13 battle, featuring the Auburn Tigers facing off against the number 13 seed Charleston. Now, Auburn has had another surprising teams coming into the college basketball season. Bruce Pearl has done a fantastic job at Auburn. The former Tennessee coach has done fantastic at Auburn. He is getting that team back to prominence in the SEC, so I cannot be any happier. So coming from me in this 4-13 matchup in the Midwest region, I'm going to go with the Auburn Tigers to defeat Charleston and move on to the round of 32. And now the next matchup, the 6-11 battle, and this one could be really good on who's going to win this. Featuring the number 6 seed, the TCU Horned Frogs, facing off against the number 11 seed that could be Arizona State or Syracuse. Now, this is an interesting matchup because Arizona State with Bobby Hurley, the former Duke player, against Jim Boeheim's Syracuse Orangemen. So this matchup is going to be really good. So coming from me in this 6-11 matchup, I'm going to go with whoever wins whoever wins between Arizona State and Syracuse to upset the number 6 TCU Horned Frogs. And now the next matchup, the 3-14 battle, featuring the Big Ten champions, the Michigan State Spartans, facing off against the number 14 seed Bucknell Bison. Now, Michigan State has been going through some controversy as well, just like Arizona, with the whole the Nacer trial that's going on, and it involved Michigan State. Tom Izzo, his job is definitely in jeopardy, and this Michigan State team has weathered the storm throughout that whole deal that they had in the beginning of the year. And then you have Bucknell, who has knocked off some big-time teams in the past in this tournament. And they're looking to knock off another huge team. So coming from me in this 3-14 battle in the Midwest region, this one's tough. This one's really tough. I'm going to go with the Michigan State Spartans to defeat the Bucknell Bison. And now the next matchup, the 7-10 battle, featuring the Rhode Island Rams facing the number 10 seed and my favorite number 10 Oklahoma Sooners. Now the Rhode Island Rams are having one hell of a year with Coach Danny. What was his name? I know they talked about him. He's the brother of the Arizona State basketball. Danny Hurley. That's right, Danny Hurley, Bobby Hurley's brother. He has made this team so good. A lot of people, I didn't even know Rhode Island even had a basketball team. But Danny Hurley has done a great job there in Rhode Island. He's going to be on that short list for Pittsburgh or Connecticut for coaching opportunities. But Rhode Island's coming in after that tough loss to Davison, but in their tournament championship on Sunday. But they're looking to make a deep run this year. Then you have the Oklahoma Sooners who got in out of nowhere. I didn't even expect Oklahoma to be in this year's tournament, but I mean they had a rough second half of the year. They were in the top 10 a few times, and then they just got knocked off. Their defense shut down. They have one player on their team that I am very excited to see this year in the tournament. Is Trae Young. If you have not seen this kid, Trae Young, this kid's going to be a star in the NBA. He reminds me a lot of Steph Curry, a lot, because he takes those deep threes in the clutch, and he usually makes them. But this Oklahoma team is very suspect. Let's just say that. So coming from me in this 7-10 battle, oh man, I'm gonna go with the Oklahoma Sooners to upset the Rhode Island Rams and move on to the round of 32. And now the final matchup in the Midwest region. It is the 2-15 matchup featuring the number 2 seed and my favorite team, Coach K's Duke Blue Devils, facing off against the number 15 seed, Iona. Now, we have been here before. I've been a Duke fan for a while, for years, and we've been here before. We've been the 2 seed. We have to play the 15 seed, and usually, and a few times we have seen the 15 seed beat Duke in the tournament. And they've been very suspect. I mean, Coach K had this Duke team is very suspect this year for sure. I mean, they do have Grayson. They have the other kid that returned for Duke, but they've been very suspect this season, and they're very vulnerable. That is for sure. Then you have Iona, who has been here before. They have knocked off some teams in the tournament before. So this is a huge opportunity for Iona. So coming from me in this final matchup in the Midwest region, man, oh man, oh man. I'm going to go with the number 2 seed and my Duke Blue Devils to defeat Iona and move on to the round of 32. And now my round of 32 predictions featuring the number 1 seed, the Kansas Jayhawks, facing off against the number 9 seed, NC State Wolfpack. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16 in the Midwest region, I'm going to go with the Kansas Jayhawks to defeat the North Carolina State Wolfpack. And now the next round of 32 matchup, it is an SEC battle featuring the number 5 seed Clemson Tigers facing off against the number 4 seed Auburn Tigers. So this is the battle of the Tigers. So coming from me in this SEC battle of the Tigers matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I'm going to go with Bruce Pearl and the Auburn Tigers to defeat the Clemson Tigers and move on to the Sweet 16 in the Midwest region. And now the next round of 32 matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, featuring whoever won the number 11, the Arizona State Syracuse match, Syracuse facing off against the number 3 seed Michigan State Spartans. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the next round, I am taking the Michigan State Spartans to defeat either whoever won Arizona State or Syracuse. And now the final round of 32 matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, and it's the battle of 2 of my favorite teams. The number 10 seed Oklahoma Sooners versus the number 2 seed Duke Blue Devils. Now, these ones are this one's always hard when it comes to seeing my 2 teams play each other in a tournament or in the playoffs. It's always hard to predict. So, coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the Sweet 16, I am going to take the Duke Blue Devils, the number 2 seed, to defeat the number 10 seed Oklahoma Sooners. And now my Sweet 16 matchups in the Midwest region featuring the Kansas Jayhawks, keep saying Kansas State Wildcats, the Kansas Jayhawks facing off against the number 4 seed Auburn Tigers. Now this one's going to be a really good one. Bruce Pearl versus Bill Self. This one's going to be a classic to see who will make it to the Elite Eight. So coming from me in this matchup, I am taking, oh my God, I am taking the Kansas Jayhawks to defeat the Auburn Tigers and move on into the Elite Eight. And now the other Sweet 16 matchup to see who will be heading to the Elite Eight, and it's a battle of two of the best coaches. It is the number 3 seed, the Michigan State Spartans, versus the number 2 seed and my Duke Blue Devils. Now it's Tom Izzo versus Mike Krzyzewski. This is going to be a classic Elite Eight matchup. So coming from this Sweet 16 matchup, excuse me. So coming from me in this Sweet 16 matchup to see who will make it to the Elite Eight. Man, oh man, oh man. I'm going to go with the Michigan State Spartans to upset my Duke Blue Devils and move on to the Elite Eight. And now my Elite Eight predictions to see who will be coming out of the Midwest in my Final Four this year, featuring the number 1 seed, the Kansas Jayhawks, facing off against the number 3 seed, the Michigan State Spartans. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will be coming out of the Midwest in my Final Four. Man, this one's going to be tough. This one's a tough pick because I like Kansas and Michigan State has been always solid. So coming from me in this matchup, I am taking the... Oh my God, I am taking the Michigan State Spartans to upset the number 1 seed in the Midwest, the Kansas Jayhawks, and move on to the Final Four. And now my Final Four predictions. Starting off on one side, it is the Virginia Cavaliers facing off against the reigning national champions, the North Carolina Tar Heels. Now, whoever wins this goes on to the national championship on April, I think, on the Monday after WrestleMania. So, coming from me in this first Final Four matchup to see who will make it to the national championship on Monday, April 9th. Man, this one's tough. I'm going to go with the Virginia Cavaliers to defeat the reigning champs, the North Carolina Tar Heels, and move on to the national championship game. And now the other Final Four matchup to see who will be facing Virginia in the national championship on April the 9th. It is the number one ranked Villanova Wildcats facing off against the number 3 seed Michigan State Spartans. So coming from me in this matchup to see who will make it to the championship game. Man, oh man, oh man. This one would be a surprise. But coming from me, I am taking the number 3 seed Michigan State Spartans to defeat the Villanova Wildcats and move on to the championship game on April the 9th. And now my national championship prediction between the Virginia Cavaliers and the Michigan State Spartans. Now, you have one team that a lot of people didn't expect to be here, and then you have another team that's been going through a lot of controversy throughout their university. So it could go either way. This is definitely a 50-50 pick. So coming from me in this national championship matchup, this national championship game, I am taking the Michigan State Spartans to defeat the Virginia Cavaliers and win another national championship. And those are my 2018 NCAA men's tournament bracket predictions. I want to thank you guys so very much for watching this video. Comment below, who do you have winning this year's tournament? Who are your upset picks? Who are your sleepers? Which teams do you think will go far? Represent your teams in the comment section below. If you're a college basketball fan like myself, represent them in the comment section below. Let's have a conversation about them. Of course, I'm always on to see your comment, like, and then, of course, reply right back to you, because comments are absolutely always welcome on this channel. Now, I do want to thank you guys so very much for watching my 2018 NCAA men's tournament bracket predictions. Now, before you guys go, you guys can never forget to do this. That like button, comment, share with your friends. Of course, super kick that like button like only you guys can. Of course, you can never forget to do this as well. That subscribe button to become part of this bigger and dangerous alliance. And I will see you guys later this week for some even more videos. Later days and peace.